Hey guys, it's Miss Shelley. Today we're going to move on to our fourth lesson in topic 8, angle relationships. Now, before we get started, I want to let you know something I did a little different today for today's lesson. Usually, I will take this presentation that I'm doing and I'll put it in notes in your announcement on your team page. However, today I did that, but I also made a graphic organizer with all of the vocab that goes with today's lesson. So if I were you, I would definitely download it. If you have a printer, I would print it out. That way you can use this information when you're doing your work later. Sometimes the vocab can get a little tricky, and that's what makes this lesson not hard, but a little bit different because it does have vocab and you do have to kind of remember all the different angles. So just remember there's a graphic organizer that you can download made specifically for this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started with angle relationships. And up first, we're going to talk about vertical angles. So what are vertical angles? They are two angles across from each other on intersecting lines. They are always congruent, which means equal. So right here, I have two intersecting lines. They're perpendicular because they intersect. So what that tells me is it tells me that this angle that I'm going to highlight in green right here is the same or equal to this. So for instance, if this angle was 3, then this angle would also be 3. That would be degrees, but that would be really small. Also, it means that, for instance, this angle in pink right here, say it was, we'll say 47 degrees, then this angle vertical of it or across from it is also going to equal 47 degrees. So angles opposite of each other, across from each other, are congruent. They're equal. Let's move on and talk about adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that are next to each other and they share a common side. So if I'm looking at this top angle right here, my adjacent angle is this angle I'm about to highlight in green. Or both of these angles are going to be adjacent because of this that I highlighted in green. If I'm looking at my intersecting or perpendicular lines below, say I'm looking at this angle and this angle. Well, those would be what we call adjacent angles because they share a common side here in the blue. So, vertical angles are across from each other. Adjacent angles are next to each other. They share a common side. They're adjacent. So, let's look at some practice problems. So, up first I have this intersecting lines. I have ABC, angle ABC. So, I write that as ABC equals 3x minus 6 degrees. And angle, that's what that little, it almost looks like a greater than or less than sign, but it's actually an angle sign. It's more of a defined sign. It has this straight line here at the bottom. E, B, and D equals 114 degrees. What I know about vertical angles is I know that angles that are across from each other, like ABC and EBD, they're equal to each other. So angle ABC equals angle EBD. So that means that this angle is actually 114 degrees. But that's not what I want to know. I need to know, looking at angle ABC, what does my x equal? So in order to find that, I'm going to set my side ABC, my angle 3x minus 6 equal to angle EBD 114. Now I have a two-step equation. Remember, we learned how to do this in our last topic. So that's the don't call after midnight, distribute, combine, add or subtract, multiply, and divide. Well, I don't have anything to distribute. I don't have anything to combine. So I'm going to add or subtract. Looking at 3x minus 6, I have a minus 6. So what is the opposite of minus 6? plus 6. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Minus 6 plus 6 gives me 0. It cancels out. That leaves me with 3x equals 114 plus 6 is 120. So now I'm going to move on to midnight, multiply or divide. In this problem, 3x is multiplying. So the inverse or the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 gives me 1x or just x. And 120 divided by 3 equals 40. So my x equals 40. And that's it. That's all we're doing. So let's take a look at another practice problem. I have another different set of intersecting lines. And I know that angles across from each other are equal. So this angle is equal to this angle, which means that 5x plus 30 is equal to 125. I need to know what x is. So I'm going to use my same thing that I used last time, and I used when I solved two-step equations. Don't call after midnight. Don't distribute, nothing to distribute. Combine, nothing to combine. So then I'll move on to after, add or subtract. In this problem, I'm adding 30, so I need to do the inverse, the opposite of adding 30, which is subtracting 30. So I'm going to subtract 30 from both sides. Plus 30 minus 30 cancels out, gives me 0. That leaves me with 5x equals 125 minus 30, which is 95. Now I can move on to midnight, multiply or divide. Well, in this problem, I'm multiplying. So the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide 5 on both sides. 5 divided by 5 is 1. So that's 1x or x equals 95 divided by 5, which is 19. So my x in this problem equals 19. All right, let's move on to a different practice problem. In this practice problem, I have a really weird looking angles, right? 5 different angles in one picture. The first thing it wants me to do is it wants me to list 2 pairs of adjacent angles. Remember, adjacent angles are angles that share a same side. So let's take a look and see if we can find any adjacent angles. Well, if I'm looking right here, angle 1 and angle 2 share this same side right here. So that means that angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. It wants me to list another one. So let's see if we can find another one. Oh, look, I can just keep going around. Angle 2 and angle 3 share this side. I can actually go all the way around and find all the different angles that share the same side. For instance, angle 3 and angle 4 have this adjacent side right here. Angle 4, let me change colors real quick. Angle 4 and angle 5 have this side right here adjacent. And finally, angle 4 is right here, and angle 5 is right here. Or sorry, angle 5 and angle 1 have this adjacent side. Now it says list all the pairs of vertical angles. Remember, vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. So if I'm looking at this map, or this picture, I need all the angles that are vertical of each other, across from each other. And that is only one angle. Angle 1 right here is straight across from angle 3. So angle 1 and angle 3. If angle 1 and angle 3 are the same measure, what is the value of x? So remember, vertical angles are always equal to each other. So that means that angle 1, 9x, is going to be equal to angle 3, which is 90. So in order to find the value of x, I need to solve my one-step equation. In this problem, I'm multiplying 9 by x, so I need to do the inverse of that, which would be dividing each side by 9. 9 divided by 9 gives me 1. That leaves me with 1x, or x equals 9 divided by 90, which is 10. So the x in angle 1 is equal to 10. Pretty simple, right? So now let's talk about a couple different types of angles. The first one is complementary angle. Complementary angles are any two angles whose sum is 90. So that means that if I'm looking at this angle right here, do you see this little box down here? This box tells me that these two angles equal 90. It's a 90-degree angle. Remember, 90-degree angles go straight across and straight up, and they form an X, or not an X, they form a square. So what this means is that these two angles added together are going to give me 90 degrees. So 3x plus 36 equals 90. So in order to figure out what my x is and to find what the angle measure for 3x is, then I need to solve this two-step equation. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add or subtract. In this problem, I'm adding 36, so I need to do the inverse of adding 36, which is subtracting 36. So I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides. Positive 36 and minus 36 cancel out and give me 3x equals 90 minus 36, which is 54. Now I have a one-step equation. In this problem, 3 is being multiplied by x, so I need to do the inverse of multiplying, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide each side by 3. 3 divided by 3 is a 1, so that leaves me with 1x, or x, equals 54 divided by 3, which is 18. So in order to figure out what 3x equals to, I need to plug 18 in for x. So I'm going to substitute. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go 3 times x, or I now know that x equals 18, so I'll plug 18 in for x. So 3 times 18 is 54. So this angle measures 54 degrees. And that's it. Now let's take a look at a different type of angle, which is supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are any two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. That means that these two angles combined are double the size of a complementary angle. So they're bigger. So if you have an angle or any two angles that are bigger than 90 degrees, then they have to be supplementary. So in order to find out what this x is right here, and in order to figure out what this angle is equal to, I need to solve for x. I know that these two angles added together is going to give me 180. So I need to add them together. So that's x over 2 minus 4 plus 56 equals 180. So I'm going to use my don't call after midnight. Don't distribute. Do I have anything in this problem to distribute? No. Do I have call? Combine. Do I have anything in this problem I can combine? Yes, I do. I have minus 4 and 56. So what is minus 4 plus 56? Remember, same sign add, different sign subtract. Do I have same signs or different signs? I have different signs, so I'm going to subtract. So 56 minus 4 gives me 52. And my answer is going to be positive because my biggest number, 56, is positive. So that gives me x over 2 plus 52 equals 180. And now I have an easy two-step equation. So I already called midnight, after, add or subtract. In this problem, I'm adding 52, so I need to do the inverse or the opposite of that, which is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 52 on both sides. Plus 52 minus 52 gives me 0 and cancels out and leaves me with x over 2 equals 128. Midnight, multiply or divide. In this problem, I'm dividing. I need to do the inverse, the opposite of dividing, which is multiplying. So I'm going to multiply 2 on both sides. Those two cancel out and leave me with x equals 128 times 2, which is 256. So, if I want to figure out what this angle is equal to, then I need to plug 256 in for x. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do 256 divided by 2 minus 4. 256 divided by 2 is 128 minus 4, which equals 124. So this angle right here is equal to 124 degrees. Good. So now let's move on and let's start practicing this. So I have an angle here. Is it complementary or is it supplementary? Well, it's not big, it's the smaller one, and it even has the box, the square, which tells me that square that is equal to 90 degrees, and since it's equal to 90, that tells me that it is a complementary angle. What I always did to kind of remember the difference between complementary and supplementary is complementary is smaller, and this C in complementary right here comes before S in the alphabet. C is like one of the first 3 letters, so I always kind of remember that the C in complementary comes first in the alphabet, so it means it's a smaller angle. That may or may not help you. Just something I use to kind of help myself. Since it's a complementary angle, I know that angle 42 plus angle X is going to equal together to give me 90. So I can write that out as 42 plus X equals 90. And now I can solve. I have a one-step equation. In this problem, I'm adding 42. The inverse of adding 42 is subtracting 42. So I'm going to subtract 42 on both sides. 42 minus 42 cancels out and leaves me with x. And 90 minus 42 is 48. So my angle x here is actually equal to 48 degrees. When you solve these problems, the first thing you need to do is you need to determine, is it complementary or is it supplementary? Once you know what the angle is, it'll be easier for you to solve it. Because then once you know the angle, you just set it equal to whatever that angle is equal to. So let's take a look at another example. So I have this big angle. Now this is a straight line. In case you didn't know, or you may have forgotten, a straight line, it's the same as 180 degrees. So just because I know that, I already know that this angle is a supplementary angle. And supplementary angles are equal to 180 degrees. So that means that 3x plus 54 is going to be equal to 180. Now that I know that, I can write it out and I can start solving. Don't call after midnight. Do I have anything to distribute? No. Do I have anything to combine? No. Do I have anything to add or subtract? Yes. In this problem, I'm adding 54, so I need to do the inverse or the opposite. And that opposite of adding 54 is subtracting 54. So I'm going to subtract 54 on both sides. Positive 54 minus 54 give me 0, and that leaves me with 3x equals 180 minus 54, which is 126. Midnight, multiply or divide. In this problem, I'm multiplying, so the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide each side by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1 times x is x. And 126 divided by 3 is 42. Now, that just tells me what x is. Now I need to take my 42 and plug it in for x. So 3 times x, or 3 times 42. And 3 times 42 is 126 degrees. So this angle equals 126 degrees. Good. I hope y'all are doing good and you're starting to get this more. Let's take a look at a different problem. So in this problem, I need to find two different angles. I need to find angle A and I need to find angle B. I'm going to start with the smaller angle, okay? I always like to start smaller, so that would be this angle right here, angle B. Angle B is my smallest, so I'm going to start there. So what is angle B? Well, angle B, I see my square right here, and it's my smaller angle. My smaller angle means it is complementary. So complementary angles are equal to 90 degrees. So that means that I can add B plus 55 and I can get 90 degrees. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do B plus 55 equals 90 degrees. So I have a one-step equation. I'm adding in this problem, I'm adding 55. So I need to do the inverse of adding 55, which is subtracting 55. So I'm going to subtract 55 on both sides. That cancels out, gives me 0. So B equals 90 minus 55, which is 35. So angle B is equal to 35 degrees. Now, I need to figure out what angle A is. Angle A is a big angle. It goes up this way, and its adjacent angle is over here, angle B. So that tells me that my second angle I'm looking for over here is supplementary. It's big. And supplementary angles are equal to 180. So that means that angle A plus angle B plus angle 55 is all going to equal together and give me 180. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do angle A plus angle B, which is 35, plus the other angle, which isn't labeled, which is 55, equals 180. So 35 plus 55, add that together, and that is going to give you 90 degrees equals 180 plus A. In this problem, I'm adding, so I need to subtract. I'm adding 90, so I'm going to subtract 90 from both sides. Plus 90 minus 90 give me 0, so that leaves me with A equals 180 minus 90, which is 90. So angle A is equal to 90 degrees. And there we have it. One last problem. Find the measurement of PAR. Also, I want to figure out, what does this X stand for? So, angle KAR and angle GAU are what type of angles? Hopefully, you just told me that they are vertical angles, so that means that they are equal to each other. So that means that angle KAR is equal to angle GAU. Angle KAR is 2x plus 16. Oops, forgot the 1 there, didn't I? Plus 16 is equal to angle GAU, which is 24. So I have another two-step equation. After midnight, after add or subtract. In this problem, I'm adding, so I need to do the inverse operation from adding, which is subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 16 on both sides. 16 minus 16 is 0. That leaves me with 2x equals 24 minus 16, which is 8. I'm going to multiply or divide. In this problem, I'm multiplying, so I need to do the inverse operation, which is dividing. So I'm going to divide 2 on each side. 2 divided by 2 give me 1. That leaves me with 1x, or x equals 4. So now I can plug that x equals 4 and make sure that it actually does equal 24. So let's do 2x plus 16. Substitute my 4 in. So that's 2 times 4 plus 16. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 16 is 24. So this angle equals 24. Now, my problem wants to know, what is angle PAR? So I want to look at the adjacent angle of angle PAR and KAR. And the adjacent angle is this line right here, R. So that tells me that KAR and PAR are what type of angles? Supplementary or complementary? Well, they're small, so they're complementary. So that means that I can take those two angles and I can add them together. So 24 plus whatever this is, and it is going to equal 90. So I can come over here and I can do 24 plus x equals 90. So in this problem, I'm adding 24, so I need to subtract 24. I'm going to subtract 24 on both sides. That's going to cancel out, give me 0, or x equals 90 minus 24, which is 66. So angle PAR is 66 degrees. And that's it. Today's activity in Teams is going to be a PowerPoint drag and drop. What that means is you're going to have an angle that's going to look similar to this one in the picture, and you are going to have to answer a bunch of different questions on it. Down below from all those questions is going to be an answer bank. Once you find the answer to the problem, you're going to drag it to the appropriate box. All of the numbers will be used once, but even though you only use it once, you may not use all of the answer choices. So you most likely, you will have leftover answers. So do the best you can. Remember, my office hours are Wednesday. If you need help before Wednesday, please send me a message and I will answer it as soon as I can.